Again, welcome back. Before our break, we heard from Chris Boston from LISC. We heard from Paul Brophy about our community development efforts here in Milwaukee, how we're doing, what we could be doing better. So let's continue that theme with a question and answer session, which will feature the following individuals who've been good enough to join us today. Let me briefly introduce each of them to you so you know a little bit about who they are. Some of them obviously are familiar to you, but we'll tell you a little bit about what they do in this community, and I think that will help add to the discussion. Sharon Adams is a co-founder and director of the Walnut Way Conservation Corps and is the primary driver behind the revitalization of Walnut Way, which is bounded by Walnut Street, North Avenue, and Fond du Lac Avenue. In 2008, the Zilber Family Foundation selected Walnut Way as the convening agency for the Lindsay Heights Neighborhood Revitalization Initiative. Sharon also facilitates the Lindsay Heights Health Alliance involving 20 medical, academic, and resident partners. Mayor Tom Barrett really needs no introduction. We're delighted to have him here today. He's in his second term as the city's mayor, former congressman, of course, and a former state lawmaker. Mayor, good to have you with us. Sharon, good to have you with us. Gary Grunow is a developer. He has demonstrated a lifelong commitment to Southeast Wisconsin. He's been instrumental in a wide variety of projects in these parts, innovative urban projects. He has more than 42 years of construction and development experience, spanning projects as diverse as the Grand Avenue Middle School to Discovery World. Gary's projects have won numerous awards, including the Urban Land Institute Achievement Award and the National Council for Urban Economic Development. Rob Henkin is president of the Public Policy Forum, which is dedicated to fact-based public policy research. He has authored 2 award-winning reports since joining the forum, one on Milwaukee County's fiscal crisis, the other an analysis of structural reform in county government. Rob has also directed 2 nonprofit organizations, the Alliance for Future Transit and the Milwaukee Jobs Initiative. Nelson Soler is the Chief Solutions Officer for the Multicultural Entrepreneurial Institute, which is committed to the creation and support of minority-owned small businesses. He has more than 20 years of experience in sales and relationship management in a wide variety of industries. He is an active member in the community, serving on a number of boards. And Julia Taylor is the first woman president of the Greater Milwaukee Committee, which is comprised of the most senior business leaders in Milwaukee. The GMC fosters public and private partnerships related to economic revitalization, education, quality of life, and regional issues. Prior to joining the GMC, Julia used to run the YWCA of Greater Milwaukee. Thanks to our panel for being with us today. Why don't we give them a nice round of applause. So the people in this room listened to Chris Boston, they listened to Paul Brophy, and I think the takeaway from their remarks is that there are things we can do better, things we can do more of together, things we can do more effectively. And so I'd like to begin our conversation there. What do we do differently? And maybe we could get a couple of observations from each of our panelists. I thought I would begin with the people who are working in the neighborhoods directly, with Sharon and with Nelson. So give me your sense of how we work together more closely and how we do things better. Nelson, you want to begin?
Sure, why not? Which language you want to use? Me to use Spanish? Well, I am really honored to be here, first of all, and thank all of you for being here with us today. I have 2 observations of everything that has been shared today. I do agree with the fact that we do need a shared vision. We continue to work. We have a, can you hear me? All right, I see some people going like, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's great.
There is a need for a shared vision. I do agree with that. We tend to work more in silos than anything else, but I think there is also a need to have an inclusive model for leadership. Typically what I see is initiatives like this are formed every so often. I've been here for 19 years. I come from New York. And I tend to see the same leaders involved every single time we have an initiative that is catalytic, that is of interest. And I think we need to also add other leaders. We need to include more corporate, more entrepreneurial individuals. We need the roundies, but we also need the Linas, and we need the El Reyes involved in the economic development. I also think we need to truly understand what a partnership and a collaboration mean. Partnership means sharing resources, and I think we need to learn how to do those things.
Sharon, your thoughts on this. What do we do differently? What do we do better? How do we work better together?
Good morning. Nelson has said it so well, and I too am honored to be here. And I think as I look around this room, I have two thoughts. One, some of you are golden to me. We have been together for a while, for 11 years or so. And some of you are silver to me. You know the song, Make New Friends and Keep the Old? One is silver and the other is gold. And I think if we could focus on that alone, we would see a tremendous improvement. That is rooted in the belief that we're all good, that we're all connected, and that there is enough to do the work. Let me underscore that with just a brief moment on my 11-year experience here, returning to a community that was rated the third in the nation growing in poverty. And I wondered, really, how did that happen? And what Nelson has said and what I am trying to say is that it happened because the people and that place was devalued, was separated and isolated. And my hope for this initiative and every initiative in community development is that we value each other, that we work to share and give. And while those may sound like altruistic kind of features, they're the ones that create the miracles that some of us are experiencing.
Thank you. Let me move the conversation to the various sectors we have represented here. I'll start down towards the end. Gary Gruno, would you like to offer some observations about how we do things better in this community?
Sure, Mike.
As a business person, obviously.
Thank you. I'm here to represent, I guess, the business community and the developer community, of which I've been in both of them for all my career in Milwaukee. And taking it kind of from 36,000 feet, I kind of, since I found out I was going to be on this panel about a week ago, have trotted around town and talked to other people in the real estate business, be they developers, be they attorneys, et cetera, and came up with a list that kind of complements some of the things that are in here today that I'd like to give you. First, it's all about money, number one. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And one of the issues that I think needs to be addressed is the overall community business improvement or development, the relationship between the developers and the cities. And I maybe answer that under a follow-up question, possibly, how that could be done. It has to be collaborative. The process has to be collaborative going forward. Too many of us have seen well-meant type of initiatives where money is gathered, people are put in charge, people build little empires, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, and all of a sudden the jobs are there and the results aren't there and the whole thing collapses. That can't happen again. I mean, we're at the point that this effort, if it's done right, will succeed. We've got to get the right people in the right jobs. We only have a certain amount of talent in this community, and yes, Nelson, we have to grow it. But I think too many people and too many organizations try to do too wide a range of services. We got to focus on the best people in the best roles as we move forward with this collaborative type of a project. To sell this thing, I think some great case studies as you go through the report and some of the things that have happened, and Sherry and some of the other people in the Zilber area. Build the case studies. That's the best thing that business people like to see, the successes in these different neighborhoods. Show the results, show how you did it, and show the results, both for raising money and for getting the companies involved in their respective areas. To that point, we've got to figure out how to improve communications. I think often the neighborhood people and the companies are talking on total different planes and aren't talking at the same level. How do we get those people together talking? The conveners in this case and in other cases can facilitate that. You've got a great creative community in this city. Why can't that creative community also figure out how to facilitate that? A lot has to be done, and there are a lot of areas, and this report is wonderful because it sets the stage. The 3 or 4 items that I think commented on this times are things that we got to watch out for so they don't become pitfalls as we move forward. We have a wonderful chance. I think that list should be complimented, and the funders group for really pulling the group together. And I hope that they stay involved, which I know is their intent, because there's the old golden rule, the gold rules, and where the money is can dictate the policies, and I think that's very important in this case. I don't think we had that focus in the past in some of these failed ventures that I've seen. Thank you.
Julia Taylor, let's continue. Your organization represents a lot of business people in this community. Give us your sense, and we'll pass the microphone down to you. Give us your sense of what we can do to improve the outcomes here.
Thank you, Mike. Well, I think today is actually the very most important first step, the release of the report that's got some concrete recommendations in it. But we also have a lot of key stakeholders here in this room and people that have been working in community development for many years. We've got a lot of new young leaders here. As a matter of fact, I was talking with a few people outside the room, that there's a lot of us here that have been around this issue for a long, long time. But it's also good to see a lot of new faces here that want to help grow the work. I think being intentional is very important, that we have good intent to carry forward, to actually make something happen, that there's a decision made to do this. I think being aspirational is important. This community has a tendency to look back at itself and criticize itself, and I think create very low self-esteem for our community. And I think we have to look at what's working in our community, the Walnut Ways, all of the great models of success that we've had out there for years and we continue to have. How do we learn from that? How do we grow to that? How do we link it? I think vision. I am a big vision person. I think that you have to put a picture out of what's going to look different here in 5 years if we make a decision today to get off the dime. And it's got to have some change and some hope and some possibility and some really clear concepts about what we want to change. And then I think ultimately the concept of leading and partnering, you know, who's going to step up to say, okay, I'm going to do the convening, I'm going to do the facilitating, and invite everybody to the table to be partners. I think it's a pretty simple recipe.
Let me go down to Rob Hankin. Rob, you're in the public policy arena. Give us your sense of what you heard this morning and what do we do differently?
Thanks, Mike. Let me address this first of all, on a micro level and then perhaps on a broader macro level. On a micro level, for me at least, one of the biggest takeaways from Paul's report was the notion that we need to focus on areas of strength. I think that when it comes to investing in neighborhoods and in our city and county in general, as resources have tended to become more scarce, we have not been willing to set priorities. We have tried to take those dwindling resources, continue to spread them to the same number of different groups so as not to obviously have to negatively impact any one. In the meantime, I think we diminish our ability to truly achieve results by doing so. I think there's a greater need on many levels to try to identify what is working. That, of course, means doing a better job measuring our progress. But once we do identify what is working, making some priority decisions and trying to make sure that the scarce resources that we do have, at least from the public sector, are invested where they ought to be. On a more broad macro level, I would say that I am one who thinks that there is greater consensus than people may think on some of the issues facing Milwaukee neighborhoods. I say this as somebody who has been a transit advocate, yet worked for a group that was headed by some of the most conservative business leaders in the city of Milwaukee. I say that as somebody who has been the top aide for both the Milwaukee County Board and for Governor Walker when he was county executive. You will be surprised that there is more consensus than you might imagine. I think the problem is how we are defining the problem. When I think about economic development, it's very easy for elected officials to say jobs is my #1 priority, and that's what we hear from both Democratic and Republican elected officials, but without focusing on what that really means. There are some who say jobs are my top priority, therefore we need more tax incentives for people to want to create jobs. On the other side of the spectrum, there are people who say jobs are the top priority, therefore we need more investment in our educational system. I think when we narrow it down like that, we fail to see the various components. We fail to see the relationship of the transportation infrastructure, of the technical college system, of the university system, of the health and human services system, which is a key element that is always always ignored in this community in terms of achieving results with our human services dollars to make sure that the people who are living in our neighborhoods have the support that they need to the extent that they in fact qualify for government support. So I think that if we started talking in broader terms about what it really means to have the environment in place to create and sustain jobs, maybe we can find some greater consensus from all sides of the political spectrum on things like the need for mass transit and, again, the need for a well-funded human services safety net set of programs.